Hello there, a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today and for watching Smart24 TV. I'm excited. I hope you are as well. It's this moment of the day as, of course, we get to break down the financial markets, global, regional, and continental here in Africa. My name is Anthony Sebale, and to join us in this conversation, you can be able to do that by using your Twitter and go to our platform that is at Smart24 TV, and you can follow and be able to give us some comments and feedback as well. You can also watch live on YouTube at Smart24 TV Live and get to, of course, leave us a comment or a like. Now, of course, the show is proudly brought to you by the OTEX trading platform. OTEX is a trading platform, particularly for the treasury bond market here in Uganda. The platform is currently pushing an initiative called Zabu. And under Zabu, we are saying you can do something new because they are bringing the treasury bond market to your sitting room, in your office, and wherever you are on your farm. You can now be able to buy and sell treasury bonds in East Africa simply by dialing *292#. With OTEX East Africa, we are saying you can do something new with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. Now, treasury bond markets are known to be one of the most expensive investments in as far as the initial investment is concerned, and with the unit going for at least 100,000 on the basic investment platforms. But with OTEX East Africa, we are scaling that down to 15,000 Ugandan shillings on all your favorite bonds from 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, all the way to over 15 and 20-year treasury bonds. And we're doing this for not only Uganda, but for Kenya and Tanzania as well. Our doors open at 8 a.m. at OTEX and close at exactly 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African time. And that is OTEX East Africa for you. OTEX East Africa says you can do something new. And of course, that is the people that bring us this show. Now let's get to delve into the business of the exchange. It's a Friday, and of course the final day of trading for the week. And of course, this is a day where we get to look back into the week and of course look ahead as we head into the weekend, what we would be expecting, at least for the start of another week of trading. Generally speaking, looking outside the East African region, in the rest of Africa, the stocks have remained quite volatile in the recent few days. And this is following, of course, volatility, especially in markets in West Africa and in South Africa as well. Ghana Stock Exchange in Thursday trades lost 3.31 points on their biggest index, which is the Ghana Stock Exchange Consumer Index. Now, Ghana Stock Exchange currently counts about, let's see, when you look at the listings, we have at least about 38 listings on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And on Thursday, in aggregate, we had 13 of them participate in trading, with only one gainer, and that was Fan Milk. Fan Milk gained 9.09% to close off the day at least a loss of at least over 2 Ghanaian cents there on their trading day. Enterprise Group and MTN Ghana as well, coming as lead losers on the market, with MTN Ghana, however, coming in as the biggest mover for the market. MTN Ghana traded at least 1.1 million shares on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Elsewhere in Johannesburg, that is on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, at least we had about the all share index increased by over 5,000 points. 500 points, 552.71 points to be very, very particular. Remember, this is the principal stock exchange for South Africa, but also the busiest and biggest stock exchange within Africa. Now, when you look at Johannesburg's trading, out of the 421 listings, there were at least 317 Johannesburg Stock Exchange equities or listings that did participate in the trade on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. The day fortunately ended with 159 gainers and over 4 141 losers on the market, with Delta Fund Properties leading the gainers after an appreciation of at least 14.92%, closing off at exactly 0.24 South African Rand. When you look at Labat Africa, it was the second biggest gainer at least 14.29%, with African Media Entertainment at 10.87%. These were some of the big boys on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. On the losing side, however, when you look at the losers, the stock that lost most was actually E-Media Holdings, after E-Media Holdings at least dropped 9.72% of their trading price, closing the day with the 3.25 South African Rand price. When you look at what we have on the South African market currently, Cognition Holdings at least also dropped off 9.52% of their trading. And when you look at the Transaction Capital Company, they dropped off at least 9%. On the other hand, Old Mutual had the biggest volume, or with the volume that had the highest number of shares. At least 18.7 million shares were recorded on Thursday at the end of the day with Old Mutual. Sibanye Stillwater also had at least about 18.4 million shares that were traded on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange last Thursday. Regarding the performance of the JSE 203, which is the benchmark index on the South African market, the index moved upwards due to, of course, the consequent performance of the biggest gainers on the market, with at least 552 points up to at least about 76,174. Generally speaking, about this week, Johannesburg Stock Exchange is still on the loss. When you look at weekly performances, we are losing about 1.92% so far on the benchmark index, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange All Share Index, which is the J203. There are a couple of other market indices on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, including the J200. We do have the FTSE JSE 40 top 40 index for the top 40 stocks and the like, but most of these actually ended in gains, looking at the other indices. So generally speaking, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange had a not very bad week of trading, though of course the volatility has been witnessed on the benchmark index. That's the J203. That is it from South African Stock Exchange Johannesburg. And now when you look at Nigeria on the other hand lost quite an ample amount on their benchmark index, that is the Nigeria Stock Exchange All Share Index. However, generally speaking, on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we had at least 111 stocks that did participate in trade on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. This was ending the day with 22 gainers and over 24 losers on the market. FTN Cocoa Processors led the gainers after they ended with the day with at least 8.77% appreciation in points, and this was closing off at 0.62 Nigerian nairas per share. The Tantalizers also had about 8.33% added to their value, while Wabik Insurance added 7.14%. Nigeria added at least 6.87%. On the losing side in Nigeria, the stock that came out last was corn oil, and corn oil had at least a depreciation of 9.92% on the Nigerian market, closing up at 43.60 Nigerian nairas. And that's summary, of course, from Nigeria. Elsewhere in Africa, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange continued to rally most of the stock here in the African continent after the benchmark index for Zimbabwe added close to 5,700 points. Now, Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has had a very, very good week. Looking at weekly performances, we are looking at gains of 18.02% on Zimbabwe's all share index after it sold yesterday by 5,741.63 points. This was closing off at 93,115 points. Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is a very big stock exchange here in Africa. It has close to at least 50 listings, and the majority of these being companies, mineral exploration companies in Zimbabwe, banking institutions, as well as other private businesses. In aggregate, on Thursday, we had 27 of these 50 stocks participating in the trade on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, and ending the day with 19 gainers and at least 5 losers. Fast Mutual Holdings led the gainers with at least an appreciation of 15% in price, closing up at 43.70 shillings per share. And these, when you look at the CBZ Holdings, they added at least 15%, whereas the CFI Holdings added 15% as well, and the ZB Financial Holdings added 14.99%. Nevertheless, we did have losers on the Zimbabwe market, and Zimplo Holdings at least lost the biggest amount of value in terms of percentages after closing off the day at 2.69%. Price depreciation closing at 90.00 Zimbabwe shillings. Pro Plastics at least lost 1.97% as well on the East African market. And that's it from the rest of Africa. Now let's get back home, and starting off with Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, Uganda Securities Exchange on Thursday was quite disappointing. There was only one stock that traded on the exchange, and the day unfortunately had just 2 gainers and over close to 5 losers on Thursday trading. Now, MTN Uganda was the only stock that participated in trade after trading 4,465 shares. This was at a value of at least 736,000 Ugandan shillings. Current market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange is valued at least 17.4 trillion Ugandan shillings on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, as I mentioned earlier, only a single stock was able to participate in trade, and this was none other than the MTN Uganda stock after, of course, a very slow day of trade. The gainers were KCB Group and Nation Media Group, who gained at least 0.11% and 0.10% respectively, closing off the day with a price of 811 and 415.65 respectively. The losing side had only cross listings, just like the top gainers, and Jubilee Holdings Limited came in at the bottom after losing 3.97% down to 4,669.27. The Equity Bank Limited stock as well dropped off at least 2.27% down to 966.24 Ugandan shillings. The East African Breweries Limited stock also slightly lost some bit of volume at 0.73% depreciation, closing at 3,920, and Centum Investments lost 0.69% down to 226.18. The Kenya Airways stock at least lost 0.22% on the market there, and closed off at 103.37. Now, MTN Uganda, the only participant in trade this time round on the Uganda Securities Exchange, released their financial results and was able to hold their annual general meeting last week. And actually, they were able to discuss the dividend that is going to yet be shared out. Surprisingly, the stock's price has not slightly improved, even slightly, for at least this dividend, because last year they issued a smaller dividend, and an increase in the dividend would really probably arouse the appetite of the public or the investors to buy more shares. That hasn't been the case. However, regardless, the stock MTN Uganda has been doing quite well. However, recently, like I've seen in the recent past, if you've been following the show, they've slightly pulled back in terms of pricing. They started off this year with 180 shillings. Now they're at 165 Ugandan shillings. A little bit of losses in the year to date. MTN, however, approved a dividend payout of 5.5 Ugandan shillings for every share that is held at the stock, at least for the year ended December 31st. The payout, which was approved after the telecom's second annual general meeting last week, totals to at least 123.1 billion Ugandan shillings. Now, this comes at back of impressive performance in the telecom's profits. Looking at, of course, the financial results, according to the fiscal results released for the period, the profits rose to 406 billion. This is boosted by the growth in revenues, especially from internet revenues and financial technology services. MTN also reported that their income last year was a gross 2.2 trillion Ugandan shillings, registering at least growth in all revenue streams, save for voice, which when even after registering a decline, remained the largest income stream. Now, during the period, MTN also indicated data revenues grew by 24% to at least a tune of 511 billion Ugandan shillings. Mobile money pay was the biggest driver. Of course, earnings, more revenues were actually registered from mobile money pay due to an extension, especially in the merchant numbers, which grew to over 173,000 in the period ended December 31st. That is reports coming in from MTN. We'll continue looking at these reports and getting to break them down for you so you understand where you're putting your money. Remember, literacy, financial literacy is everything when it comes to investment. You need to know how the companies are doing and why you are investing. Away from MTN, let's look at another company, the only pharmaceutical company listed on the Uganda Securities Exchange, and this is none other than CIPLA. CIPLA Quality Chemical Industries also this time round registered an improved profit. Now, CIPLA Quality Chemical Industries collected about 43 billion Ugandan shillings from Zambian government for unpaid drug supplies that had impacted the company's bottom line, and of course posting losses for the first 2 years of listing since 2018 on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Now, in details contained in the company's financial results, CIPLA indicated that it had significantly reversed the impairment allowances on trade receivables due to another part recovery of about 43 billion Ugandan shillings, or close to 12 million US dollars, that had remained outstanding on its books for years. CIPLA has been receiving tranches of payment from the government of Zambia since 2022, with the latest being at least 14.7 billion shillings, which the company said now brings the outstanding debts to 5.4 billion. That is how much they are left with. Last year, CIPLA indicated that it had received 23 billion from the government of Zambia towards payment of the long-term debt, which had put the company in a complicated financial position due to the large provisioning. In 2020, CIPLA applied more pressure on Zambia, and they were able to suspend drug supplies to the country over unpaid invoices. However, the repayment last year saw the company register a strong revenue position, which profits now rising to 5.5 billion from 5.5 billion to at least a tune of 24 billion Ugandan shillings. That's information coming in from CIPLA. We shall get definitely more tomorrow or Monday, actually, since we are closing off for the weekend. But of course, we continue to stay watch in CIPLA's stock. Elsewhere in the international markets, going up to the United States. Now, US President Joe Biden and top Republican lawmaker Kevin McCarthy are edging close to a deal on the US debt ceiling, with parties just 70 billion US dollars apart on discretionary spending, according to a person familiar with these talks. Now, what is likely to emerge will not be hundreds of pages, but something that could make lawmakers to write in just a single day. Read and vote, and of course, this will be able to influence what will be the next move for the United States. The markets remained quite slow on the Wall Street as we continue to monitor the talks on the debt ceiling, with the S&P 500 gaining 38% and the Dow Jones losing 61% on the market in the United States. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us and for tuning in. More, of course, on our website at www.smart24tv.com, and you can also do so by tweeting and, of course, following us at Smart24TV now. My name is Anthony. Remember, the show is probably brought to you by the Altex trading platform and the Zabu, where we say dial *292# to experience the magic at Altex East Africa and buy bonds is as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings. That's it from us this Friday. Of course, remember to catch the show next on Monday. We will be getting to break down for you analysis, especially from the United States, the debt ceiling talks, and more from the earnings of different companies as they get unveiled, of course, through the close of the financial year 2022-2023. My name is Anthony. Once again, thank you so much for sparing time to watch Smart24 TV. More business coming your way. Have a good day. Bye for now.